My name is Roberto, and before anyone tries to judge me for what I did, I need to admit something that took me years to recognize. I became a man who used the uniform as a shield to hide the decay of my own soul. For a long time, I confused authority with dominance, respect with fear, and the uniform with a kind of safe conduct that allowed me to cross boundaries that should have been inviolable. It wasn't suddenly that I transformed into the kind of police officer I claimed to fight. Corruption didn't enter all at once. It entered gradually, silently, discreetly, always with excuses that seemed reasonable enough to keep me blind to the truth I avoided facing. In the beginning, a remnant of who I had been still existed within me. I remembered the gleam in my mother's eyes when she saw me in uniform for the first time. I remembered the pride I felt believing I would protect lives and make a difference. However, the routine of the streets, the twisted encouragement, the conversations that began innocently and ended dangerously, all of this corroded my character like rust, slowly consuming what seemed solid. My conscience, which had once warned me, began to whisper, then to whisper less, until one day, it said nothing more. I found myself justifying decisions that violated my own principles, and the further I strayed from the truth, the easier it was to keep lying to myself. I came to believe that I had the right to decide who deserved help, who deserved punishment, who should suffer, and who could pay to escape. With each wrong choice, I sank deeper, and the deeper I sank, the more convinced I became that nothing would ever catch me. The danger wasn't in the street. It was inside me, hidden behind the false sense that I controlled all risks. But there's a limit to everything. There comes a point when even the proudest of men realizes that life won't let them escape the consequences forever. And even if I tried to ignore it, something inside me knew the price was coming, silent and inevitable. Break the silence in the comments. Do you believe that God still speaks to those who are lost? I know this testimony has already touched you in some way. Stay here with me. Subscribe and leave your like before we continue, because what comes next may be exactly what God wants to speak to your heart today. Let's go together. When I think about how everything evolved, I realize that the danger was never just the money. The real poison was the feeling of power that money gave me. I woke up every day believing I was indispensable, that my name circulated among criminals and authorities because I was someone respected. In reality, I was feared, and there's a huge difference between respect and fear, a difference I could no longer see. There were nights when I looked at myself in the mirror, impeccably dressed, with my gun cocked and rigid posture, and convinced myself that all of that was part of real life, that the world worked like that, where everyone had their price, and mine had simply been paid before others. Easy money accumulated like a silent reward, reinforcing the feeling that I was above the consequences. People treated me like someone powerful, and the more bribes, favors, and advantages I received, the more I believed that this was just the natural return for facing what no one else dared to confront. I was surrounded by criminals, but at some point I stopped realizing that I had become one of them. The only difference between us was the uniform. The same hand that should have protected was being used to threaten, negotiate, manipulate, and above all, hide the truth under layers of arrogance. I always justified everything by saying I knew the seedy side of the city like no one else. And because I knew it, I said I had the right to profit from it. I deceived myself into believing that this made me stronger, more prepared, more capable of surviving in a world where few dared to confront what I confronted daily. But the truth is, I was being destroyed from the inside, and I didn't even realize it. Pride blinded me, money lulled me to sleep, and the feeling of invincibility distanced me further and further from any vestige of morality. At times, when the early mornings seemed too quiet, I felt a strange unease inside, as if something was trying to warn me. But I pushed it away, saying it was just tiredness. Little did I know that this unease was my conscience's last attempt before disappearing. And you? Have you Ever felt God trying to speak to you even when you didn't want to hear? Comment below. The truth is, nobody wakes up one day and decides to become corrupt all at once. The downfall begins much earlier, in steps so small they seem harmless. For me, it was one night when a well-known local merchant, trembling with fear, asked me not to report a small incident that could complicate his life. He placed a folded bill in my hand, as if handing over something unimportant. $50. Something I could have refused, could have ignored, could have returned. But I accepted. And at that moment, without even realizing it, a deep crack opened inside me. It wasn't because of the amount. It was because of what that gesture represented. It was the moment I stopped listening to the voice that told me to do the right thing. I remember that night. My heart felt heavy. It wasn't guilt. It was fear of having crossed an invisible line. But I hid that fear behind a phrase that would repeat itself many times in my life. It was only now, only this time. That only this time was the first brick in an entire wall that would separate me from the truth. And each new request, each new favor, each new envelope made me more comfortable in the darkness I had allowed myself to enter. It's amazing how evil thrives in silence. It doesn't enter shouting, it enters whispering. And when you realize it, you can no longer distinguish the whisper from your own will. Gradually, that initial guilt faded. And when guilt goes away, conscience loses its power. I began to see these situations as something natural, almost predictable, as if they were part of the routine. Each wrong choice became a step I descended without noticing how deep the abyss was becoming. And while I thought I was gaining an advantage, in reality, I was losing the most precious thing a human being possesses: the ability to recognize their own mistake before it's too late. What I didn't know was that small moment, that seemingly insignificant amount of money, would later be remembered in the face of a revelation that would destroy me from the inside. And what was shown to me that day, no man in his lifetime is prepared to see. It's strange to look back and realize how much the human heart can become accustomed to what once frightened it. The first few times I accepted money, favors, and deals left me uneasy. But that unease faded like an ember losing heat until it turns to ash. After some time, there was no longer any conflict within me. What remained was coldness. A coldness so profound that it allowed me to walk over people, stories, and lives without feeling anything. I had become someone who observed the pain of others, as one observes a detail in the rearview mirror, present, but too distant to matter. I remember one night when I was called to attend to a situation that demanded compassion, sensitivity, and justice. But I no longer possessed any of them. The desperate family pleaded for help, and I was only thinking about what I could gain or avoid from that event. Nothing else mattered anymore. Nothing else had meaning. My heart no longer reacted to the suffering of others, and that was the final proof that something within me had died long before my body. I moved around the city like a functional man, but spiritually, I was just a shadow dressed in authority. The more I normalized evil, the harder it was to see the distance between who I had been and who I had become. I spoke with criminals and felt the same as them, because deep down I was. The only difference between us was the badge. This dangerous indifference, this moral anesthesia, brought me one step closer every day to something I couldn't define, but knew was dark. I ignored any thought that tried to warn me because, to continue living in that cycle, I needed to stifle any spark of conscience that tried to be reborn. And when the soul becomes accustomed to ignoring what is right, it begins to walk towards a destiny that no one imagines until it's too late. It was precisely at this point that my life took an unexpected turn. A turn that led me to what no man wants to see. Because the revelation that was about to happen would tear away my masks in a way that not even death could prevent. That night began like so many others. Tension on the radio, headlights cutting through the darkness, and the constant feeling that everything was about to explode. I was already used to danger, and perhaps precisely Because of that, I began to treat it as something less than it really was. I entered the chase believing I was in control, believing that, as always, I would emerge unscathed, strengthened by the arrogance that had accompanied me for years. But, for the first time in a long time, something inside me whispered that something was wrong. I ignored it. The speed increased. The asphalt seemed to narrow, and I moved forward without measuring what was to come. That's when I heard the gunshot. A dry, direct, cutting sound like a sentence being handed down. For a second, I thought it was just another stray bullet, a common noise for someone living surrounded by violence. But before I could react, I felt an unbearable pressure pierce my chest. It wasn't immediate physical pain. It was something deeper, as if life had suddenly been pulled out of me. The steering wheel slipped from my hands, and everything around me distorted. I felt the car lose control, and the world seemed to move in slow motion, as if allowing me to see every detail of my own end. When I finally stopped, I couldn't tell if the silence surrounding me came from outside or inside. The air felt too heavy to breathe, and although my eyes were still open, my vision was beginning to fade at the edges. I tried to speak. I tried to ask for help. I tried to move, but my body no longer responded. I didn't understand exactly what was happening, but I knew that something irreversible had been triggered there, at that instant. And in the midst of this silent despair, I realized that the fear I had always ignored had finally caught up with me. But death was not the end. It was merely the door that opened to something that no training, no uniform, and no arrogance could have prepared my spirit to face. Because what awaited me on the other side was not darkness. It was the truth I had always tried to avoid. When my eyes finally went dark, I thought it would all end there, in that instant suspended between the sound of my own heart and the emptiness that was beginning to take over me. But, contrary to what I imagined, something happened. I felt a strange lightness, as if a weight I had carried for years had been ripped away without warning. It was then that I realized I was still conscious, although I no longer felt my body. When I opened my eyes again, I saw the scene before me in a way I will never forget. My body fallen, motionless, while I remained standing, observing everything as if I were a spectator of my own death. The room seemed enveloped in a kind of silent fog. The sounds that were once loud now came from a distance, muffled, almost unreal. I saw the paramedics approaching. I saw hands trying to resuscitate a body that was no longer mine. But I couldn't touch anything. I couldn't interact with the world around me. It was as if an invisible barrier separated me from the life I thought I controlled so well. I tried to scream. I tried to call someone, but no words came out. Despair grew, not because of death itself, but because of the feeling of being trapped between two worlds. Over time, the atmosphere began to change. The light from the headlights that had once cut through the darkness disappeared, replaced by a soft brightness that seemed to come from nowhere. The silence intensified until it became almost deafening. It was as if time itself had stopped. I felt that something was about to happen, something much bigger than me. My spirit seemed to be pulled away from that scene, and the further I moved away, the clearer it became that there was no return to the life I knew. That's when the presence appeared. A presence so strong, so imposing, that it made all the sense of control I had in life seem insignificant. And when that presence revealed itself to me, I understood that the true judgment was only beginning. The presence that appeared before me didn't need to announce who it was. Even before any form was fully defined, my spirit already recognized the one I had ignored all my life. It wasn't an ordinary light, nor an image constructed by human imagination. It was something so real and so absolute that any courage I believed I possessed instantly vanished. Before me stood Jesus, not the gentle Jesus of the paintings I grew up seeing, but the Jesus whose holiness exposed everything I had always tried to hide. His presence didn't hurt, but revealed. It didn't accuse, but made it impossible to continue lying to myself. He didn't say my name,
He didn't need to. His gaze alone tore through every layer of pride I had built up over the years. The feeling was of being completely naked inside, as if all my thoughts, intentions, and choices were being laid before him without filters, without justifications, without excuses. And the worst part is that at that moment, I couldn't deny anything. I had no way to point fingers, contexts, pressures, or influences. There, before that gaze, I understood that all corruption begins within us, long
before any external opportunity appears. It wasn't anger I saw in his eyes, it was truth. A truth so pure, it burned more than any accusation. I felt each memory of my life unfold like pages of a book, and Jesus simply watched as I confronted who I had been. I saw every person I had hurt, every choice I had made out of self-interest, every life I had left unprotected because I chose to serve money instead of the purpose I once swore to fulfill. It was as if my spirit was being held before a mirror that never forgives, but also never lies. In his presence, I realized something I never wanted to admit. The judgment didn't come from him. It came from myself. It was my own conscience, now fully awakened, that screamed that I had lived against everything that was right. Jesus didn't need to raise his voice, because the light emanating from him made all falsehood evaporate. And the more the truth appeared, the more I understood that my life, behind the uniform, had been a series of decisions that distanced me from him at every step. Then he moved slightly, and something around him began to open, as if the spiritual world itself was about to show me the final result of my choices. And what I saw in that instant revealed a destiny that no human being is prepared to face without trembling inside. When that spiritual opening formed beside Jesus, I felt something I had never felt before. It wasn't fear of the unknown. It was the profound recognition that I was about to see the exact result of every decision I had made while believing that nothing would ever be held against me. The light around him remained intact, pure, but the opening seemed to create such a strong contrast that I sensed there was no room for justifications, only for the naked and painful truth of my choices. And that's when the vision began. The first thing I saw were faces. Faces I knew, faces I tried to forget, faces I turned into statistics to be able to sleep. I saw people who trusted me and whom I abandoned for convenience. I saw families who begged for help and whom I ignored because the other side of the negotiation offered me more. Some of those faces were accompanied by a pain I had never perceived in my life, but which now, faced with eternity, seemed to scream inside me. It was as if each gaze was a silent question. Why? Then the vision deepened. They weren't just faces, they were destinies. I saw interrupted paths, diverted lives, destroyed dreams. Jesus didn't need to explain anything. I understood each image as if I were inside them, feeling the weight of each consequence. The corruption I had accepted hadn't just stolen money or dignity, it had stolen possibilities, futures, entire stories. And each fragment of this truth weighed on my spirit like a sentence I myself had written. Then, the opening revealed something even deeper. I saw a place that was not a prison, not a cave, not fire, but absence. An absence so intense that it seemed to consume everything around it. It was as if the distance from God was, in itself, the most real torment a human being could experience. That place had no screams, but it had echoes. Echoes of the choices that turned against me, showing that hell is not an imposed punishment, but the natural destiny of those who spend their lives denying the truth. Jesus didn't turn away or push me into that abyss. He simply remained there, allowing me to understand something I never wanted to face. I myself had walked to the edge of that destiny. There was no surprise, no injustice, no exaggeration. It was simply the harvest of my own sowing. And just when I thought I'd seen the worst, the vision revealed something that made my whole being tremble. Because there, on that boundary between light and darkness, something was shown to me that completely changed the course of my existence. When that vision finally began to dissipate, I felt something unexpected. It wasn't condemnation, nor abandonment, nor the feeling of being cast into the fate I clearly deserved. It was something deeper, something that enveloped me as if piercing the darkest place in my soul. The presence of Jesus remained before me, firm, unchanging. And it was in that instant that I realized that, despite everything, I still existed there, conscious, awake, and able to feel the weight of my choices. And if I could still feel, then something was happening that I never imagined I would receive. Mercy. There were no audible words. There was no speech, accusation, or threat. What happened was internal, silent, but stronger than any cry. It was as if my own spirit was invaded by a sudden understanding that the story was not over. It was as if Jesus, simply by remaining there, was telling me that, although I had walked to the edge of the abyss I myself had built, he could still pull me back. And that hurt. It hurt because I knew, with absolute clarity, that I didn't deserve it. It hurt because every scene I had witnessed was proof enough that my life, the way I had lived it, should have ended right there, at that moment when eternity almost closed in on me. But, strangely, I realized there was a chance of return. Not because I had value, not because I had earned any right, but because he had grace. Mercy doesn't mask sin. It reveals the truth and still offers a helping hand. And that hand was outstretched, even though I couldn't physically see it. I could only feel it, as if the very air around me had shifted in... Wait. For the first time, I understood that God doesn't save those who deserve it. He saves those who need it. And I desperately needed it. Suddenly, I felt as if I had been pushed back, ripped from that place of revelation and thrown once more onto the edge between life and death. It wasn't gentle, it was abrupt, like someone being pulled from the bottom of a dark ocean to the surface. Everything went black, everything spun, and the next instant, I opened my eyes in a cold hospital room with machines beeping and people rushing around me. The physical pain returned like a violent wave, but nothing compared to the spiritual pain I carried within me. I was alive, but I wasn't the same man who had died minutes before. I cried. I cried with a sincerity I had never experienced before. Not because of the wounds on my body, not because of fear, but because I understood that I had returned with a purpose I couldn't ignore. In the following days, the weight of the revelation didn't lift from me. With every breath, every step, every memory that surfaced, I felt as if I were being watched, not for condemnation, but for responsibility. I knew that if God had given me back to life, it wasn't so that I would repeat the same mistakes, nor so that I would treat it as a passing scare. It was so that I would change. And not just change, but bear witness. The change I had to face wasn't just moral. It wasn't about stopping doing wrong. It was a deep, painful, and daily reconstruction. It was, like peeling back, layer by layer, everything that had transformed me into the man I was. I sought out people I had hurt. I confessed to acts I had hidden. I faced consequences I had avoided for years, not because someone demanded it, but because my soul could no longer bear living on lies. And for the first time in many years, something began to be born within me. Awareness. A clear awareness, one that doesn't shout, but whispers. An awareness that reminded me every day that I was alive for a reason greater than my own story. As time passed, I understood that this return wasn't just about me. It wasn't about my moral correction, nor about my remorse. It was about what would still be revealed to transform the hearts of others. It was about people who, like me, believe they still have time, that they can still hide the truth, that they can still escape the spiritual consequences of the choices they make. because the message I needed to deliver wasn't mine, it was his. And now, she needs to reach those who can still be saved before the abyss becomes her final vision. When I finally had the strength to face my own reflection, I realized that the experience I had lived through was not just an opportunity to rewrite my story, but a direct call to warn those who, like me, have been gradually silencing their own conscience. I learned the hard way that no one is lost suddenly. The fall is built slowly, by small concessions that seem insignificant, by thoughts we push away, by choices we justify to avoid acknowledging the truth. And if there is anything I must share with those who hear my testimony now, it is that corruption doesn't begin in the pocket, it begins in the heart. I spent a large part of my life believing I could keep one foot in the light and the other in the darkness, manipulating conveniences and hiding behind well-crafted excuses. But when I found myself before Jesus, I understood that the true measure of a man is not in what he shows to the world, but in what he tries to hide when no one is looking. The conscience we ignore becomes, one day, the voice that screams with an impossible force to silence. And, whether in this life or before eternity, we will all be confronted with the truth we avoided seeing. That is why I leave this warning. Do not wait until the last second to realize that you have lived far from God. Do not wait to lose everything to finally understand the value of truth. You don't need to go through what I went through to discover that life is too short to be lived in deception. There are paths that seem safe, but lead to destruction. And there are choices that seem small, but have consequences that echo beyond death. Every attitude you take today is building the road you will find tomorrow, and no human disguise can convince the one who sees the inner heart. I'm telling my story because I know someone out there needs to hear it. Someone who might be at their breaking point. Someone tired of justifying their own mistakes. Someone who knows they're going in the wrong direction and out of pride won't admit it. If that person is you, take the first step now. Ask for guidance. Seek truth. Turn back before the path becomes irreversible. God still speaks, and if you're hearing this, it's not by chance. There's a calling being made within you, and ignoring it could cost you more than you imagine. And if this testimony has touched your life in any way, I sincerely invite you to subscribe to the channel. Not only to support it, but to continue receiving messages that can transform your spirit, strengthen your faith, and remind you day after day that God still gives new chances to those who decide to return to the truth.